Yeah, we're back.
Yeah.
We're back, everybody. Welcome back to Roll
with the Troll.
So listen, today we're talking Star Wars, all right?
Yeah.
And this is a real, I think this topic will be a very big deal to me and to people who grew up with the original trilogy. Like when we were really little kids, the trilogy was out. I don't think this will be a very big deal to younger people who maybe potentially see the two trilogies. Well, there's 3 trilogies now, but we don't like to think about that new one. But who see the first 2 trilogies as just kind of, you know, working together pretty well already. You know, let me explain. Here's what I mean, guys. So to me, I grew up with Star Wars, the first trilogy being very available when I was a little kid. And then it was a long time, almost 20 years, right? Like 17 years or something between Return of the Jedi and the prequels. And so, I mean, you can imagine that's a long time. And Lucas was doing all these interviews and saying, you know, he's going to wait till they can. What's funny, ironically, he wanted to wait to do prequels, partially to be with his family, but also because he said he wanted to wait till the technology was right. Remember this?
Yeah, I do remember that.
He used to say that a lot, you guys. For those of you who are young and weren't around for all this.
Waiting for the technology to catch up with his vision and his ideas.
Exactly. That's exactly how he kept saying it. Yeah. So he kept saying the things I need to do are just too big. They need to wait for technology we don't have yet. And I remember that was a real way to put a pacifier in my mouth, right? And for a lot of us, it was kind of like, oh, all right. So we're going to get something incredible, but the technology's not there yet. Okay. I mean, really, in the history of film, has anyone ever said that? Hey, we're going to wait 16, 17 years for the next film because we got to wait. That's how long it's going to take for technology to catch up. I thought it was interesting that he knew just how long it was going to take, you know, and then coincidentally it worked out so he could spend more time raising his kids and all that shit. So it was really weird, but we all knew that they were coming. We were just going to wait an abnormally long time.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is this, right? The original trilogy feels radically different from the prequel trilogy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just complete different worlds. And I know some of you kind of grew up with both trilogies. So wouldn't you think for people who grew up with both, they don't see a huge divide between the two necessarily?
I don't know about that.
No?
No, I think people recognize that there's a vast difference between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. I can barely say that word.
Yeah, well, here's my thinking. I think a lot of young people, when I talk to them, they don't necessarily realize, or they can look it up, but they don't necessarily think about like the incredible difference in time and in the production and everything. And for me, the big thing is the lore. The lore changed quite a bit. Here's what I'm really getting at, guys, and I'll explain why I think saying Sith in a deleted scene from A New Hope is a bizarre and crazy, like a change to the whole way I look at Star Wars history. All right, here's what I'm talking about. In the original trilogy, they never say Sith at all. They talk about the dark side, but they never have a name for it. It's just this really vague thing that, it's the dark side. And also there's other terminology that's very different between the two trilogies as well. Like, for example, the word younglings, right? Remember
Yeah.
They're just fucking kids. Just say kids. But they didn't say children or anything. They had to say younglings. And there's even a way of speaking in the prequels. And maybe this was very deliberate because they wanted it to feel like it was well before, the original trilogy, which is now, you know, the second one in chronological order. But I think there was the prequels are almost meant to feel like olden times when people are speaking more formally. There's more respect. There's more like, well, Senator, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, they all seem to speak to each other in a more formal kind of way. And again, I know you can come up with excuses and say like, well, it's 20 to 30 years prior. They spoke differently then. Okay. A generation's difference can do that, I guess. And you might say it's because at the time it was a time of peace versus in A New Hope. Of course, it's not a time of peace at all. It's complete war and chaos right off the bat. First thing Vader does is strangle somebody with his... Notice, let's go back to that real quick. He strangles somebody with his hands because of what just happened in Rogue One. But he doesn't have to use his hands.
Yeah.
He exerted himself unnecessarily. Vader can chokehold without even being on the same planet as you.
Well, maybe he just wanted the pleasure of, being hands-on.
That's what's interesting. He did a full-blown chokehold with his fucking hands when he could just wave his hand around. He doesn't even have to do that. He could just sit there. Remember in Empire, he did like a working from home kind of chokehold. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he doesn't even need to. Anyway, I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah.
But the point is, there was so much hatred and so much negativity going on in the original trilogy with Han, Luke, Leia, and everybody that I guess it's understandable that maybe you want to put more formal talk in the prequels to kind of emphasize that it's a different time, but a different culture, essentially. I don't know. What my point is this: saying Sith in A New Hope, like they do. You haven't seen this footage yet, have you?
I have not. Does it really exist?
Yeah, I swear. Look, I'll put a link. I'm not being a dick. I'll put a link to it. There really is a deleted scene, and I'll explain it really well here.
Really?
There's a deleted scene where in A New Hope, it's one of the guys you don't see very often from the Empire. I think, it's the same guy who says that line about hokey religions, ancient religions to Darth Vader, and then Vader gets pissed. I think it's that same guy. I could be wrong. But he's the one who...
That was a dumb thing to say.
Yeah, you don't talk that shit about Vader. He's the one who actually referenced Vader as a Sith. I think in that same meeting, actually. I think that meeting was extended. And he actually says something like, you're a Lord of the Sith and blah, 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 blah. But he actually fucking says Sith. And the reason that trips me out so much is that nowhere in that whole trilogy do they ever say Sith. And again, younglings and certain terms like that. And to me, it felt like one of the many retcons that took place between the two trilogies. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of retcons, right?
Okay.
Like, for example, even in that scene where when they do talk about ancient religions, it's not ancient. It's like 25 years ago, 20 years ago, not even. It's right before Luke was born. Luke's like 19 in this movie. So when they say this ancient religion, what the fuck are you talking about? What, you can't remember it? You guys are in your 40s. You can't remember being a young person and Jedis being like the police? I mean, that's what it is.
Well, the religion predates all of that.
But the Jedis were using that religion. I mean, they were, it was no secret in episode 3 that the Jedi were Force users, right? Wasn't that like very public knowledge?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that's one component right there of what I'm explaining is the difference between the two trilogies is they clearly knew at the time of A New Hope that the Jedi were the police only 20 years prior and were Force users. So to now say that Darth Vader uses the Force and it's the Force is some ancient religion, that's a weird thing. And you see what I mean? It's like it feels like a bit of a retcon. So as much as Lucas likes to say that he had it all planned out, he's like, I got this. I planned it all out in my sleep. I knew I was going to do 9 movies. He's had this whole story. None of that really makes any sense when you listen to the way they talk about the Force in the original trilogy. And when you look at the way that things are presented in the prequels. And so this was another one when the prequels happened. And again, guys, this was like 16, 17 years after Star Wars went on hiatus with Return of the Jedi. Once they started using terms like Sith, and I know some of that was probably in the books too, but I never read the books. But once they were doing that, I remember thinking, okay, so here's Lucas having to kind of move the chess pieces around a little bit to tell the story he wants to tell now. So that means he's got to change some of the language. He's got to change certain things. It can't be an ancient religion anymore. And where A New Hope, they clearly say that Darth Vader is a Force user. Now the Sith aren't talked about as Force users in the prequels. You know what I mean? Like I guess there's a little bit of that. Like they'll say like you use it's referenced about the dark side of the Force. You know what I mean? They don't just flat out say they never tell a Sith member, a person trained under the Sith, that like they just flat out use the Force. You know what I mean? It's always like the dark side of the Force, the Sith. That they want to make sure they're always using different kind of language. And so to me, hearing them actually say Sith in New Hope, I realized that Lucas wasn't necessarily lying that whole time in all those interviews. Because remember, we kept catching him in lies constantly. Like Lucas had to take back so much of what he had said once the prequels came out. Because he had said things, and even during the original trilogy, like he at one point he said that his intention was to blow up the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, but not in A New Hope. And then the reason he blew it up in A New Hope was just because he didn't know that he'd get to do sequels. So he's like, well, I got to blow my wad now just in case. You know what I mean? It's it's like a guy taking home a girl from the bar and he's like, this might be my only shot here. I better just do everything. You know what I mean? Like, let's not hold any tricks back. Let's not wait for any magical moments later. Let's just give everything. There might not be a return engagement.
Wow.
So
I've got nothing for that.
That's what he had to do with A New Hope. And he kept talking about how there were all these, like how he knew there was going to be a trilogy and he knew there'd be another trilogy. And in reality, you can see him, like, here's another example. And this really gave it all away. Remember how in A New Hope, Obi-Wan clearly states he has no memory of ever having droids?
Right.
That's a big one, right? Fans talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And then once we got the prequels, the first fucking thing you see is droids. And I remember going into the prequels, and I thought, wait, what is going on here? I thought he never saw droids. I thought we knew we can't have R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Didn't he say, I don't remember owning a droid?
Okay, yeah, he didn't remember owning droids. Yeah, he's seen droids. I just mean he never had them. And here he was having the same two that he just spent
Literally,
3 movies with.
yeah.
You know, it just, there were a lot of little retcons to make sense, and for all the things George Lucas kept acting like, oh, no, I got this whole story down. This is how it was supposed to go. The one he was really right on was Sith. The one where it really seemed to some of us like he just made up Sith in the last minute because he had prequels to do, and he wanted to give them a new name. That was the one that he actually did. I got egg on my face. He actually did have it in A New Hope.
There you go.
And I thought that was interesting. Now, why it didn't come back up in Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, I don't know. But you're not so fascinated by this?
It's interesting. I'll have to see the clip, I guess.
You know, and another one, remember how Han was saying he didn't believe in the Force in A New Hope?
Yeah.
Han was very clear about it, but think about this. Chewbacca is his best buddy, right? For years. Chewbacca met King Force user Yoda. Remember, they were friends in the prequels.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
So Chewbacca can't, like, is there no word for I saw the Force? I mean,
Right.
Is there no way to explain that?
I bear witness?
I mean, it's so silly, like some of these problems. So I guess that's all the more reason why, to me, when the prequels came out and we saw them, we were all like, well, okay, there's a lot of fixing, a lot of retconning, a lot of sort of changing things around a little bit to try to make them somewhat make sense with the first trilogy. And now to find out the first trilogy actually had the word Sith being used, I'm a little bit surprised. I feel like that was one thing where Lucas gets to be right. He gets to say, I'm telling you, I was going to say Sith.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that the thing that is amazing you the most is just realizing that George Lucas actually did have this written out and planned.
I'll tell you, because he's such a bullshitter. Remember when he kept saying that we were going to see, we had to wait 16 years for this, more than that. He said we were going to see how Darth Vader gets his name and why he's called Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He said that in a lot of interviews. And so for a lot of us, like from our childhood all the way into our 20s, we were like, wow, one day I'm actually going to get
waiting.
We were just waiting around like, wow, it's going to be because Lucas was such a bullshitter about so many things. And then what happens? He gets the name. Remember, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? In episode 3 in Revenge of the Sith. He just, all it is Palpatine just looks at him and he says, and you will now be called Darth. And it's a small pause with no explanation, no anything, just a little pause. And he goes, Vader. And like, it's so funny because first of all, I mean, you know, Vader means father in German, right? But like, they don't have German out in fucking outer space long ago. There's no German there. So like the notion that in a way you could kind of explain it and say, well, Vader means father. And Palpatine must know that they're pregnant, I guess. So he figures, call him Darth Father because he's going to have a kid, I guess.
Yeah, that was always the takeaway for me, was Palpatine had to have known if he named him Vader.
But then why is he using German to explain it?
Why are they using English?
Well, that's weird too, I know. But it just, look, there's so many fucking problems. It's just very strange to actually see one of these millions of problems suddenly get rectified in a deleted scene. Now I want deleted scenes to fix all the other ones too.
Yeah, there you go.
I want a deleted scene where Chewbacca explains, like, listen, I've seen the fucking Force. This little green guy with these huge ears. I'm telling you, Han. You don't want to believe me now, but I'm telling you.
Who is not Grogu.
No, it's not Grogu at all. Anyway, guys, whatever. Let us know what you think. There's so many little kind of plot holes and things to talk about between the sequels, the prequels and the fucking first one. Let us know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe.
Hit the like button, please.
Hit the like button if you could. Support the channel a little bit. Comment, let us know what kind of videos you want to see us do in the future, all right? Have a good one.